Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So we'll move on today to the general idea of sustainability. And before I make a video like this about what sustainability is, I just thought it was worth just talking about the vocabulary and the jargon that kind of surrounds this term, both in terms of environmentalists and what the IB like you to use. So I talk a lot about, and I probably already have, I've talked a lot about natural resources. The correct term really is natural capital. Natural capital is a term that was borrowed by environmentalists some time ago from economists, obviously. And I think at its basic level, it was an attempt for environmentalists to give value to natural resources. Capital doesn't have to just talk about capital in terms of monetary terms. We've already mentioned that the environment can have intrinsic value. So when we talk about natural capital, it's a term where we're describing the value, both monetary and non-monetary, that we give to natural resources. Okay, the key terms are above my head, so we'll talk about natural capital, the three different types of natural capital: renewable, replenishable, and non-renewable. Natural income is the income provided by natural capital, and then the two types of natural income are the environment provides in terms of goods, which are tangible objects, things, and services, which is a bit more vague. I hope that makes some sense as we go through it. All right, so as usual, I'll start by just looking at the syllabus. So the syllabus starts by giving you this kind of convoluted definition of natural capital. So I'll read that out in its entirety. It says that natural capital is the term used for natural resources that produce sustainable natural income of goods or services. Then it defines what natural income is. That's the yield, the monetary yield really, that you obtain from natural capital. And then underneath it says that, well, as I said, you can split natural income into income that's provided through services and through goods, tangible things. Okay, the applications, they refer more to the link between these ideas and sustainability and the value that they provide. And I think I'll treat that separately in a second video when I talk specifically about sustainability. Let me get that right. Sustainability itself. So in this video, we'll just concern really about the definitions of what these terms mean. Okay, so moving on. I've mentioned this already. Natural capital can be split up into three types. It can be renewable. So you all know what renewable resources are. But in this context, when we talk about renewable natural capital, we're talking about living things that can replace themselves and be harvested sustainably. So there we're talking about things like wood and food crops. A subset of renewable natural capital is replenishable. Same idea, but here we're talking about non-living resources, or non-living natural capital, I should say. So things like solar power, solar energy, geothermal energy, water. So things that can replenish themselves but are not living things. And then separately to that, on the other end of the scale, we can talk about non-renewable, I was going to say resources, non-renewable natural capital. So they are non-replaceable things, or at least non-replaceable things over the course of a short time scale of hundreds or small thousands of years. So that includes fossil fuels, nuclear energy, and other resources like helium, which we can't readily at the moment produce ourselves. Okay, so that's what natural capital is. It's a kind of a term that we're going to use to replace the idea of natural resources in order to give those natural resources some kind of intrinsic and monetary value. Okay, I hope that made sense. So as we go through this, we're going to be referring back to the three pillars of sustainability that we've mentioned a few times already. So we have natural capital in the environment. The natural capital provides natural income, monetary and intrinsic. Natural income we can split it into goods. A good is a tangible object that you can get from natural income. So things that you can sell, like wood, if you have a small woodland. Services are it's kind of a vague term. And I'm going to use this opportunity to split services up into three sections. So we could say that under services we have something called supporting services. So supporting services are those things that allow an ecosystem to form. So services like producing soil, providing the ability to recycle nutrients within the ecosystem, providing primary productivity or plants that support the rest of the food chain. Those are supporting services. Again, not necessarily things that you can sell, but things that have intrinsic value. We also have services that I will call regulating services. Regulating. So under that subtitle, I would include things like pollination, very useful and help to provide other goods and services. The regulation of disease in an ecosystem and pests, maybe. Regulation of climate, and regulation of things like oxygen and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So things that allow the ecosystem to function. And then finally, by the way, those two services probably they're referring to environmental, goods, economic pillar. The third service I would call cultural, or maybe societal, cultural. And those are services that basically are providing services to our human society. So things like the aesthetic nature, the aesthetic beauty we see in nature, the pleasure we get from that, the recreation we get from nature, for example, from our natural parks or lakes or rivers, the outdoor sports we can partake in, and if you want to be a particular hippie, you could say the cultural service that gives us kind of spiritual well-being. So therefore you can see that these goods and services support these three pillars of sustainability. Okay, this is just an opportunity I could take just to switch back to something we've already talked about, which are environmental philosophies, specifically technocentric and ecocentric. If you're a technocentric, then your belief is that natural capital will always be unlimited because we can use technology to provide more and more access to natural capital. If you're ecocentric, you'd probably take the view that the best approach is to look after natural capital and to switch to renewable sources of natural capital. And you can argue with me, but I would say people in MEDCs that are kind of remote from nature would generally take a technocentric approach, and people that have a better relationship with nature are more likely to take a ecocentric approach. Okay, and then finally, the final thing I'd like to talk about today is the idea that natural capital is dynamic. The word dynamic means changing. It can mean changing over time, or it can mean changing over location. Specifically over time, you could say that natural capital may have value at one point in time and not have value at another point in time. Or the reverse, that something that in the past has not been of value can become valuable as that natural capital is exploited in a different way, as technology allows that. So two examples. 200 or 150 years ago, oil had no real value. If you had land where you had a plentiful supply of oil on your land was pretty worthless because the only thing that the oil could be used for really was as a waterproofing material. It was only when we reached the age of the combustion engine that oil became really, really valuable and petroleum became really, really valuable. Conversely, 100,000 years ago, the most valuable, if valuable is the right word, the most valuable natural capital in the world was probably flint rock, because that was the kind of rock you could produce stone axes for, which was the height of technology. These days, flint as a building material is pretty worthless. Okay, so that's as much as I want to say. Hopefully, I've explained the idea that natural capital is not just capital in terms of monetary value, it can include intrinsic value. That intrinsic value can be included in services as well as goods that natural capital provides. Goods are things that you can sell for monetary worth, and services are a bit more vague, but in a lot of ways a lot more valuable than goods. Goods and services are part of natural income to humankind. I think that's about as much as I want to cover today. Please, can you maybe just watch this video again, flip back to the syllabus, and make sure that you're happy that I've kind of covered the ideas that are in the knowledge section of the syllabus. Okay, take care. As I always say, take care of your families, and I will speak to you in our lesson this week. Okay, goodbye, everybody.